Hi everyone and welcome once again to Root Access. I'm Ryan Ritchie. Jamie DeGrazia with me, and each week we like to delve into the world of Apple questions and that sort of thing. But I did some research.
Okay.
The kids love lists.
All right.
They like it when you take a complex problem, break it down into a nice orderly list.
So you're going to give me a top 10 list? Is that what you're telling me?
No, you're going to give me a list.
Oh, okay.
Actually. You're going to give me a top, let's make it three. Top three list. I'd like to know, you were behind the bar. Mm-hmm. You've seen action,
yes,
as it were. But what are some reasons someone might not want to be a genius? Top three reasons someone might not want to be a genius.
Well, that doesn't make any sense at all. Why would not somebody want to be a genius?
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's only one reason.
Well, I mean, first and foremost, I would say that you are working retail. It's a retail store, and everything that comes along with work in retail certainly rears its head at Apple. You know, we're talking about the hours. Whether you're working late, working early, or working weekends, working holidays. So that's something that after a while can wear on you. Mm-hmm. It's also at times can be a very repetitious job.
Well, before you get into that, just to go back to the holiday thing, when you see the money, when you go there and you work, and it's not, for geniuses, it's not too terribly bad. But when you compare it to other places, you have to keep that in mind.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
that you're working weekends, that you're working holidays.
Yeah, I mean, certainly it's not like working at the Gap or whatever. Taking the money out of it, though, you're still working the same hours as somebody working at the Gap.
Sure.
So that can sort of wear on you a little bit. The other thing is the job can be repetitious.
Hold on. And number two? I'll give everyone
okay.
It's an ordered list. Okay, number two.
Job can be very repetitious, particularly if you're working the bar for the whole shift or maybe a few days in a row. You're going to see the same problems over and over. And, if anyone who's been in the Apple Store or been at the Genius Bar, you notice that it feels like 90% of the problems are iPod related. And I'm sure now it's iPhone related as well. And there's only so many things that can go wrong with an iPod or iPhone.
Right.
So if you're working the bar, you've probably seen everything within a few hours.
Well, and one of the differences is with a computer, you get to kind of be your own little Nancy Drew or Hardy Boy and try to troubleshoot and get in there and figure out what's going on and
there's
try
a little bit of more work
and try that.
Yep.
But with the iPod, you put it in a box, give them a new one in a box.
Yeah, I mean, the iPod
restore
is basically restored. If it doesn't restore, there's usually a hardware problem. Yeah.
And a while back, Apple went to kind of dividing it up so that there were iPod geniuses and Apple geniuses, but those were the same people. It was just what job they were doing.
Well, some stores have separate iPod bars, and I think they still stock them with standard geniuses, but they rotate who's at the iPod bar versus the Genius bar. At our store, we only had one bar, and we just sort of mixed it up. So you could be doing 3 computers in a row, but then you could get stuck on 20 iPods in a row that you're working on. So. And
one more time, if anybody missed it before, a lovely young lady comes up to the bar, her iPod doesn't work, you look at it and see the music, what do you say?
Oh, I think we do this already.
Yeah, I know, it's in case people missed it.
Well, the joke was you'd look at you'd find a New Kids on the Block song or NSYNC song, and you'd say, this is clearly why it's not working, and then you'd get a big laugh.
And a number.
Yeah, sometimes. I guess the third reason.
Okay, are these in any order?
No, this is just no order.
Okay.
The third reason for not working at the Apple Store, or not being a Mac genius, I should say, is the occasional bad customer, which you can come across, and Apple people tend to be very passionate individuals about their computers, and they spend a lot of money. Apple hardware you're paying a premium, so you expect everything to be perfect, and that's not always the case. And I mean, for the most part, most people were understandable, and most people understood that you were just doing your job, and that some things were out of your control.
I think to add to that, what made it difficult was the fact that you would have bad customers and then kind of get put in the middle between the bad customers and management, where you would toe the company line on a certain thing, and then if those people went and talked to management, they get a different story, and you think, well, why didn't we just start there?
Yeah, and a lot of times what would happen is if you put up the wall initially, they would keep badgering, make a big stink, and then they would get their way at the end of the day anyhow, and then sometimes you would just feel like, well, why are we going through this? If we know ultimately you're going to get a replacement iPod for a cracked screen, Why am I going to argue? Why am I going to make you raise your voice? Why am I going to have to feel like a jerk? Let's just give you a replacement iPod, you know?
Be done with it.
Yeah.
Save everybody
Yeah.
time and hassle.
Yep.
Fair enough. And then that also leads to the whole thing of, you know, the squeaky wheel getting the grease, and the customers that throw a fit and talk to the manager and everything.
Yeah, and sometimes you felt like, well, this customer before this bad customer was nice. They were, you know, a gentleman, but we couldn't do anything for them because they dropped their iPod in the toilet. And this customer now is going to get a new iPod because he's yelling about dropping his iPod in the toilet.
And you always ran the risk of, we've talked before about the mob mentality. And so if there's 4 people there with a broken iPod and you give in on one,
Yeah.
then you got to deal with the other 3.
Yep, exactly.
So I can see that as an issue. All right.
But for the most part, customers were fine.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, in the next segment, we'll do a top 3 reasons to be a genius.
Okay.
To kind of balance things out. But let's take a look here. We've got, to recap, the hours / working on
It's still
holidays.
retail.
You're saying it's still
Yeah.
retail. That's number 3. Number 2, repetition.
Yep.
iPods and iPhones. A lot of the same thing over and over and over again. And also then finally, some difficult customer situations, we'll
Yes.
say. Not even, you know, not even...
I'm not going to say bad customers.
Right, pretty
'cause
much
they're not bad
difficult
people, but
situations.
situation. Maybe.
Okay, fair enough. And just real quick on that repetition thing, I don't know if this is still the case, but I know for the Mac specialists, when the iPod really took off, that became the job. Someone would come up, they would inevitably have a PC, they wanted an iPod, and they would say, what do I need to have the iPod?
Yeah.
Well, do you have a
Yeah, I
Firewire
mean, it's
port?
just not
over and over
the
and over.
geniuses. It's everyone who works at Apple. Yeah.
The repetition does.
Everyone who works at
advantage.
Apple retail, I should say. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so next segment, come back, we'll be talking about the top 3 reasons. Don't lose hope. There are 3 reasons to be a genius, and we'll talk about that in the next segment. Bye-bye, everybody.